de débat.
Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Ponoka-Didsbury.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's always great to get up in the House and represent the fine people of Ponoka-Didsbury. I want to thank my colleague who just spoke from Vernon Lake Country Monashee. I consider myself fairly right-wing, but he's making me look like a moderate in the House today. So I unfortunately don't have time to go back and alter my speech in order to keep pace with my newfound best friend. We're going to be spending a lot more time together based on my assessment of what he had to say about the government across the way. But it is important to talk about this piece of legislation, Bill C-22, and the Lawful Access Act. It's a little bit weird to stand here because we were just talking about this. It felt like we were just talking about this actually last fall because this is the second kick at the cat for this piece of legislation for the government. They tried to have a similar set of laws passed in a sweeping omnibus bill, Bill C-2, but now it seems like that bill didn't pass, and it's being reintroduced by the government, and of course it's coming, we know, on the heels of what was a minority parliament, and it's going to turn into a majority parliament here soon. So one always has to keep that in mind. If this bill is crafted the same way that the majority government here was crafted, there's no reason to think that this isn't a sneaky piece of legislation at all. The Liberals laud their talking points and their PMO comms lines that this bill will help keep Canadians safe and get crime under control. Well, the only reason crime's not under control is because we've had 11 years of Liberals across the way. And if Bill C-22 was really about law and order or limiting crime or protecting victims, then Conservatives would be wholly in support of this piece of legislation. But it's actually, I don't think, Mr. Speaker, about any of that. It's about power. It's about control. And it's got a very deeply Orwellian feel to it. Conservatives in this country have always believed in law and order, and this is a vital and fundamental pillar of what it means to actually be a Conservative, to believe in and respect the rule of law in this country. And we used to actually have governments that followed the laws as well. It would be nice if we got back to that at some point in time. The governing Liberals have had many opportunities over the last 11 years to show us that they also want to see a reduction in crime, but every chance that we put in front of this Parliament, they seem to vote against it. The Liberals have an ardent history of refusing bail reform, embracing catch-and-release style legislation, and now after a decade, they expect the opposition to believe that they're actually serious about cracking down on crime. Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not buying it. Last week, we debated Bill C-25, which amends the Canada Elections Act. One of the objectives of that bill is to prevent foreign interference. Well, during debate on that bill, I used the example of the 700 Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps members who are freely living in Canada today. The government won't deport them, won't put them in jail. They're here fundraising, conducting business, and harming our country every single day. You can't say that you're serious about dealing with foreign interference if you don't deport the terrorists and criminals living in our country, and you can't say you're serious about crime and protecting Canadians without deporting these same terrorists or criminals from the country as well. You can't have it both ways. That's because, Speaker, these Liberals aren't serious about crime. They are serious, however, about seizing control and having more power for themselves and their government. That much we know for sure. On Friday, my colleague from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes referred to Bill C-22 as Bill C-2 redo, and he's exactly right. Last fall, the Liberals put forward Bill C-2, the Strong Borders Act, which fell short of protecting Canadians while overreaching in many areas of jurisdiction that didn't need to, like authorizing law enforcement to literally open up people's mail and inspect it without actually any due process at all. There was severe pushback on this, not only from the opposition, but from hundreds of advocacy groups who stood firmly against this legislation because of the risks it poses to the civil liberties of the Canadian public. We Conservatives successfully blocked Bill C-2 and stopping the Liberals from limiting the use of cash in transactions, opening the mail without any oversight whatsoever, demanding any service providers, including hospitals, financial institutions, and probably even your local dry cleaning store, to disclose user data without any judicial oversight. Bill C-22 removes some of these provisions that we oppose, but reintroduces, of course, some of the parts of Bill C-2, parts that were rejected when the Liberals held their rightful minority government, but have since reintroduced this bill now that they know they're going to have the majority of votes in this place. It seems like an awfully convenient opportunity, doesn't it? We Conservatives support giving law enforcement the tools they need to combat crime and keep communities safe, particularly as threats and dangers evolve in the digital age. But we also believe that there needs to be strong safeguards accompanying these powers. There also needs to be clear limits and independent oversight to protect the rights and freedoms of the people here in Canada. Bill C-2 was a failed piece of legislation that the opposition could not and did not support, because not only did it fail to adequately address the criminal element in our society, but it infringed on the freedoms and the rights of Canadians in an unjustifiable way. And now the Liberals seek to reintroduce many of the rejected measures of C-2 in this bill today. They rebranded their failed legislation as Bill C-22 and have brought it back to this very House with their illegitimately obtained, like I said, soon to be majority here in the House. And especially for the 11+ million Canadian voters who didn't actually vote for a Liberal candidate in the last election. Speaker, our caucus has been very clear in where we stand on the Liberals' obsession with big, bloated and powerful government. It's unnecessary and it's a gross misuse of power. Bill C-22 focuses specifically on telecommunications and internet service providers while creating oversight for ministerial orders. The Liberals have already banned news from being reported on Meta. Why do they need access to Canadians' information through the internet and telecommunications providers? Will the personal information of Canadians be shared with the government through this bill, like it would have been under Bill C-2? The government won't tell us. Can any member sitting on the government benches today give me an answer to that? Well, if they could, they probably wouldn't, and if they did have an answer, chances are, Mr. Speaker, it would be wrong. Keeping Canadians safe is just a mere disguise for the folks across the way. The Liberals have had over a decade to keep Canadians safe, and they've continuously let crime get worse. The Liberals say that Bill C-22 is needed to keep up with rapid growth of our world's digital environment to help keep Canadians safe, but it makes me wonder, is this actually true? Well, I would say, Mr. Speaker, in some cases it's not. Why? Because the Liberals have voted down every piece of crime-reducing legislation the Conservatives have brought to this House since Parliament commenced in this Parliament, at least last May. They've repeatedly ignored the calls of every single Premier in Canada who asked for bail reform. They refuse to appoint judges so that violent criminals are having their cases dismissed and timed out. This isn't about crime reduction for the Liberals across the way. This is all about having an excuse and a reason to seize power and control. Even CBC pundit Andrew Coyne, known for his staunch Conservative support, I'm kidding, of course, said last week that the Prime Minister has an autocratic streak a mile wide, and he's showing that now. Coyne said that with a minority parliament, how bad will it actually get in a majority parliament? It's all about control. Central control by the central banker. Bill C-2 was about control by letting law enforcement open your mail. Bill C-9 controls what religious people are allowed to say out loud or texts are supposed to read. Bill C-22 controls the privacy rights of Canadians through increased government surveillance and access to information. We know this because Liberals have a track record of these power grabs, whether it be changes that they proposed to make to the standing orders in 2016. I don't know if there's not a lot of people here today that I remember that. They were going to basically take control of this place, and they didn't want an opposition, they wanted an audience. The Prime Minister's interference in the SNC-Lavalin scandal in 2019 and subsequent firing of the first Indigenous female Justice Minister in Canadian history. Consistent cutting of time allocation and for debates on important pieces of legislation. Gag orders on government watchdogs. The unnecessary invocation of the Emergencies Act in 2022, which saw the Liberals freeze the bank accounts of hundreds of Canadians. The expansion of cabinet authority as provided in Bill C-5. Bill C-15, which gives ministers of the Crown permission to exempt individuals and organizations of their choosing from any federal law they want, including the Criminal Code. Now online surveillance and, of course, access to Canadians' information. Every time the Liberals are tasked with solving a problem, they always choose to assert total control and dominance over the situation. They grab power for power's sake. They control your taxes, your finances, what you say, the religious texts you read aloud, the firearms you're allowed to hunt with, the things you need to believe to qualify for Canada's summer jobs money, the salmon you're allowed to fish for on the West Coast. It's all about control. It's always overkill. It's always too much. It's always over the top. It never solves the problem. But then again, Mr. Speaker, you can't be the problem and the solution at the same time. Bill C-22 is, of course, no different. The Conservatives have put forward so many pieces of legislation to crack down on crime and protect Canadians, but the Liberals continue to vote us down in favour of their soft on crime policies that repeatedly let violent offenders out on bail time and time again. The government doesn't need to infringe on the rights of Canadians to solve the problem of surging crime. You solve that problem and protect Canadians by putting violent offenders in jail, strengthening bail laws, and deporting non-citizens who are guilty of committing violent crimes here in Canada. I don't see any of that in this legislation, Mr. Speaker. It's because the Liberals aren't serious about fixing the problem. They're only serious about garnering more control for them, themselves, their friends, and taking Canadians' tax dollars and putting it on their